It's time for Lefties Losing It. Now, I'm going to go to one of the more egregious cases of cowardice and casual bastardry that I have seen in some time, and it involves the very slippery, the very slimy Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, a man who wants to be president. He's not satisfied destroying California. He wants to start work on the rest of the country. But even by Gavin Newsom's gutter-dwelling standards, this is a new low. Remember the heartwarming, relatable story he told Charlie Kirk after Charlie was good enough to appear on Gavin's fledgling podcast? Well, he's now lying about what he said about his son being a massive Charlie Kirk fan. He changed the story because he was on CNN. First, let's listen to what he said to Charlie.
Last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, "No, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're in school tomorrow." He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, "I'm coming." I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is,
you canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you.
Now, that's what he said earlier this year. And gosh, how quick-witted was Charlie. Quick as a flash, reminding Newsom about unnecessarily closing all those schools. Charlie did Gavin an enormous favour by agreeing to appear on his podcast. This is how Newsom repays him, by now walking back his comment that his son was a massive Charlie Kirk fan, because Gavin was on CNN and he knows all too well what that loopy audience thinks of conservatives, even the most friendly, joyful conservatives like Charlie. Listen carefully to Newsom here. What a snake.
So that's your son, obviously a fan of Charlie Kirk. What was the conversation like between you and your son after Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
Well, he called me, I don't know how he got a phone, but he called me from school that day, really alarmed, and all his friends were around the phone that wanted me to somehow express or understand what was going on. He wanted to know if he was dead. He wasn't a fan of him as much as he was familiar with him. And it was very revelatory for me because he's also out there. My son is 11, 12 years old. He's sitting there talking to me about not just Charlie Kirk, but folks like Andrew Tate. And he's, sort of beyond Joe Rogan, in many ways, sort of Facebook in so many respects of sort of this novelty of the pod, manosphere, et cetera.
He wasn't a fan. He was just familiar, really. What a detestable scrote. This man can't even remember how old his son is. He got it right back in March when he told Charlie he was 13. Now on CNN, he's claiming he's 11 or 12. He's aging backwards, Gavin. Your son is 14 now, by the way. Hunter is 14. Write it down somewhere so you don't forget. Really, though, what a weak character that he would seek to alter his own story about his son's admiration for Charlie Kirk. Just a snake. But Gavin Newsom is a saint compared to this next woman, Jennifer Welch, may just be the most hideous person on American TV, and that's saying something. A hideous, bitter, crazy, far-left conspiracy theorist loser who only appeals to fellow awfuls. That's affluent white female lefties who have lost any semblance of rationality, any semblance of decency too, it seems. So much so that they are comfortable saying stuff like this out loud.
And you think people are waking up only in New York City? You're mistaken. Look at this clip of a wine mom at the No Kings March. Play the clip.
Whatever his name was?
Charlie Kirk, ma'am?
Yeah, him is horrible. Horrible.
Charlie Kirk is horrible?
Yes, I'm glad he's not here.
You're glad he's dead?
Yes.
Why would you say something like that, ma'am?
Because he was horrible on the campuses, the college campuses. Horrible person.
You know what? I do the exact same thing.
Well,
would you be glad if I would die?
Maybe. I'd have to think about it.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Your friend just said she'd be happy if I died.
I think we need to...
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period.
Yep, she thinks it's great that some deranged dimwit is celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder and telling a young woman to her face she too deserves to die for believing in things like biological reality. She not only thinks it's great and that Democrats should back that reprehensible worldview. But she's threatening the few sane Democrats resisting it. She said, if you don't get on board, we'll come after you the way we come after MAGA. Now, reminder, this hideous woman can be seen on MSNBC. I played one of her clips from MSNBC just last week. This is the modern left, folks. They are ugly, they are full of bile, and they are crazy.
And that woman out in somewhere middle America saying, Charlie Kirk, he was a racist, he was a piece of shit. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And you are sitting on the sidelines, running your social media like complete dorks. It's embarrassing. Get your together.
Now, this week we saw billionaire climate change alarmist Bill Gates do a massive U-turn. Yes, he no longer believes climate change is catastrophic and is urging folks to walk away from global warming doomsday predictions. And it seems he is not alone. Let's check in with CNN polling expert Harry Enton, who explains that most Americans never bought the climate scaremongering.
About climate change now for decades upon decades upon decades. And the worry in terms of climate change, simply put, hasn't shifted. It has not reached the majority of Americans. The bottom line is that the climate change message that folks who, of course, believe that climate change is real and is quite worrisome, simply put, has not really worked with the American people.
Yep, the majority never bought the hysteria, and the stats are even worse for the global warming alarmists when you drill down into those figures. Drill, baby, drill.
Is it the biggest thing they're worried about?
Yeah, it is not anywhere close to being the biggest thing that people are worried about. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk about top issue facing the U.S., climate change. Well, I got some numbers for you on the screen right here. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these numbers are not particularly high. Top issue facing the United States, climate change. It was 3% in 2021, 2% on average of polls in 2023, and this year the average of polls 2. It is very, very low on the list of priorities. I was trying to count it out in the Gallup poll, and basically it was so low down, I was counting all the different issues, I almost lost track. It was like 15th or 20th. It was just very, very low down. So the bottom line is not only are we seeing that the number has not really moved over the last 36 years, but in terms of being the top issue, it simply put has not broken through.
Oh dear, that must really be devastating for the Al Gore grifters, all those renewable rent seekers. Let's look at one more data point that really explains who sees climate change as a top-tier issue.
In terms of how people feel it will impact them directly. What are you saying?
Yeah, I'll just note two things. Number one, your Harvard education paying off. But number two, right here, look at this. Climate change effect on my home area will be harder to stay here. Look, in 2023, it was 23%. Look at where we are now, 17%. Now, these numbers are pretty comparable, but they're pretty comparable on the low side is what we're talking about here, is Americans simply put just don't think it will have the type of impact that will really change their lives, which again goes back to the message that Bill Gates was saying, right? This is not something that's going to be devastating for humanity. It's something we can work our way out of. A lot of Americans agree, and even on this, we're talking about just 27% of Democrats who believe that climate change affecting my home area, it would be harder to stay here. So even on the left wing, where you'd expect the climate change message to hit most home, it simply put is not reaching that type of level in terms of the doomsday scenario that Bill Gates is talking
Interesting.
about.
Joining me now is political advisor and commentator CJ Pearson. CJ, even among Democrats, only 1 in 4 thinks climate change is going to have a profound effect on their lives and where they live. No wonder Bill Gates has done a big U-turn on this issue.
A huge pivot. Well, Rita, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I got to look at these issues and I say that even Democrats are having a shock to reality when they realize the effects of the disastrous Schumer shutdown. Things that are affecting things like EBT benefits, things that are affecting things, like our military pay, the ability for our servicemen and women to actually be able to afford their groceries and pay their rent. Those are the results of the consequences of Democratic governance in this country. And so, yeah, you're right. Climate is not the biggest deal to many of these people because they're forced to confront real issues, real problems that are put on their plate by a Democratic Party that does not give a damn about them. And so, yes, climate change may be a pie-in-the-sky issue, existential threat to the Greta Thunbergs of the world, but to everyday Americans and everyday people all across the world, it's small pickings.
Now, there were huge lines earlier today at Turning Point USA's latest event in Mississippi at Ole Miss, headlined by the Vice President J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk. People were waiting outside CJ for hours in the rain to attend this event, and J.D. Vance threw away the script to speak from the heart.
You know, I got this whole speech written, and I'm not going to deliver any of what I had written. I'm just going to speak from the heart, because that's what Charlie would so often do. And you know, when I think about what we lost 6 weeks ago, it feels like forever ago when I was in a meeting in the West Wing, and one of my staff members came in and said that Charlie had been shot. And then I looked at my phone and I saw all the text messages and realized that my dear friend had been very seriously injured. Now, in the West Wing at that time, we actually thought that Charlie had a chance. We didn't know that he was eventually going to pass away. What a terrible tragedy for the United States of America. Because Charlie wasn't just a political figure. He wasn't just a guy who went around campus and said very interesting things. Charlie wanted you, more than anything, to invest in the things that were worth having, to build a life that was worth building. And that started, the most important advice he ever gave you was fall in love, get married, and start a family. And I can't honor Charlie without repeating that most important advice.
And that was the message, and that's what so many people who think Charlie was spreading a message of hate seem to have missed. Most of those people, I think, have never actually heard Charlie Kirk speak, but he wanted young people to have what he was blessed to have, which is a loving wife, having a family, and building the foundations for what is a really rich life.
No, you're exactly right. I think the vice president took the words right out of my mouth. You know, Charlie Kirk lived a life bigger than him, and that was exactly his intention. And to see the crowds that we're seeing at universities like Ole Miss, and, you know, of course, the tour is not stopping. We'll see them at Auburn University in just a few weeks. It shows that his movement is not just alive, but it's alive and well, and it's growing. It is, you know, what's interesting to me that the left tried to stop this movement with a bullet, but what they actually did was grow it tenfold. And so young people are waking up. Young people are more active and energized than ever to fight for this country, to do all that they can to make America great again. And I got to say, I know Charlie. I knew Charlie very, very well. And I know that he's looking down on all of us with a smile on his face. And we're doing all that we can to make him proud.
Well, that's what Erica Kirk asked for as well. She's asked the audience to make Charlie proud. She got a huge reception naturally. And she also asked the young audience to find their courage.
Gen Z, you are the courageous generation. Hear me when I say that. My husband believed that to his core. That's why he went on campuses. That's why he was trying to reach you. You are the courageous generation. Own it. Make him proud.
CJ, do you see it that way as well? Will Gen Z save Western civilization?
I think we will. It's a heavy charge, but I think that we are well equipped to rise to the occasion to do so. You know, I'm going to tell you, Rita, I'm going to level with you here. When I think about the issues that are dominating the conversation in our country today, the issues that are dictating the direction of this country from here on out, I am more energized than ever to fight like I never have before, because I realize that if our generation doesn't fight, we have the most to lose. It's not the career politicians of today that will lose anything. They're 70, 80 years old. They will not live to see the consequences of their own actions. But me at 23 years old, I will. My peers, they will. And so we have to fight. We have to do so. We have no choice. We have an obligation to ensure that America is just as great as the one that our parents lived in, just as great as the one that our grandparents lived in, and so that we can ensure that our children can live in a country just as magnificent as the one that as our forefathers.
Now, I've got a surprise for you, CJ. This is CNN host Abby Phillips. We love surprises. You know, she is a leftist, a Trump critic. Some would call her a hater, but yet she said this on the popular Breakfast Club podcast about how Donald Trump is so popular because he gets things done.
In a way, he's challenging capitalism. He's putting tariffs on countries indiscriminately just because he wants to, making the case that he's doing it for Americans. He is taking government stakes in private companies. That's a Bernie Sanders idea, by the way. He is creating a government website where people can shop around for prescription drugs, another Bernie Sanders idea. So his willingness to just take some of these ideas that Democrats have been talking about and just do them, no matter how controversial they are, has been one of the things that, whether you like him or not, what people will say about Trump is that he does what he says.
Well, as they say, even a broken clock is right twice a day, and she's right there despite being characterised as a far-right figure. Donald Trump is anything but, and his policy platform is anything but. And that's true whether you're talking about the tariffs or the way the administration is tackling Big Pharma.
No, you're exactly right. And I think the reason the left fails to understand President Trump in any meaningful way is because they view him through the lens of a politician. But politicians run on one thing and they do another. President Trump ran on one thing, and he ran on many things, actually, and he's done all of those things. Promises made, promises kept. That is his dogma. That is his North Star. He delivers for it every single day. And so it's not surprising to me that you have folks like Abby Phillip who are so enamored by someone like him, because it actually is very rare to have a politician who does what he says. But President Trump is doing exactly what the American people give him a mandate to do, and we're rooting for him in every which way.
Now, let's not praise CNN too much. Let's have a look at a clip that is far more typical of what we see from Abby and her show.
What do you think it's being done for?
I personally think that an infrastructure is being built to allow Donald Trump to stay in office indefinitely. I don't think that what's being done to the White House, you don't do that if you think that anybody else is going to inhabit this thing after you and if you are planning on leaving power.
Lydia?
Try to work that out, CJ. Apparently, Donald Trump's building a ballroom so he can remain in the White House forever.
Yeah, I wonder what they would say about Abigail Adams or Martha Washington or, Jackie O, who, initiated many renovations to the White House structure. These people are actually really, really crazy. And you kind of feel bad for them at a certain point. Again, I really hope that they get the medication and the help that they need, because these types of delusions just aren't helpful. In the spirit of Maha, I really am rooting for them. But as a Christian, I'm praying for them as well.
Well, before you go, just try to make me understand where this hysteria comes from over this ballroom. You would think it would be the least controversial thing a president has ever done. Building a ballroom for the White House, a gift to the American people. The taxpayers aren't paying for it. It's going to be built with Trump's own money and donors, rich donors who are contributing to this. And yet they're finding a way to dress this up as some sort of a major scandal.
Rita, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and I kind of need you to come on a visit here so you can see just how unwell these people are. They are just truly, truly unwell. These people would be upset if President Trump woke up at 6 a.m. They would call him unwell, but they were not calling Joe Biden unwell when he would wake up at 2 p.m. And then, of course, only to be, rehabilitated by his 2 scoops of ice cream that made him feel well again, right? And so I can't really get myself into these people's brains, because thankfully I think that, I'm mentally fit enough to even have these conversations. These people are not. But it's truly interesting to see. And I hope what we realize that these people have no business weighing in on issues of actual importance, because they have absolutely just been completely corrupted by Trump derangement syndrome in every which way.
Well, they discredit themselves with this hysteria. I mean, it's all well and good to pick apart consequential issues if you've got a different point of view. But when you get hysterical about a ballroom being built without any taxpayer funds, you just show yourself to be an absolute clown. CJ Pearson, thank you so much for your time tonight.